Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Blacksmith's Furnace. With me, Pete.
My like Mo, yeah. The pagan Robert ain't about. I guess you know we're saying this about me for the past 2 weeks as well. So it's cool. Pagan
We've been
Robert ain't
cussing
about.
you out. Yeah,
Fam.
yeah. I mean,
I
you'll
just
see who's consistent around here. So I ain't got to blow my own horn. But
do you know what it is,
alas,
yeah?
yeah.
Peter's the one who presses record on the thing. So if he ain't here, nothing ain't going live.
I that said, I can't be a single point of failure, so I need to show you guys the StreamYard stuff. But either way, yo, heavy hitters, we're in the house.
Come on.
Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for listening.
Hey,
Let's kick things off with the sorry, not sorry.
we're bringing heat on one of the hottest days. Come on.
Trust,
Double
as you can
whammy.
see, as you can see,
Double
I could.
whammy. Man's out here in a white feet. They're just flexing small.
I
You see
wasn't
a
even
chat
flexing.
on that.
I had a
Flexing
shirt
small.
on. I had a shirt on, and it looked like so. Sitting like this, it looked like my shadow. So the entire time on video, I couldn't see. And then I must have done this or something. I was like, wait, hold on, it's just wet. It's just wet, man. So that's why I've taken the shirt off because I've literally been sweating, and it's just been like, it was not a nice look. I don't know if this is a
Bro,
better look, but alas, yeah.
I was sweating just sitting in the car. Yesterday, I was washing the dishes, and I had to take my shirt off, and my whole back was just from washing dishes. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was doing before. I mean, like literally. I mean, now I close the door. I'm like, if I might as well make it a sauna, try and get like a little heat therapy in. But yeah, it's just
Bro,
summer came late. But yeah, what are you gonna do? Gotta be grateful.
yeah,
But yeah, let's kick things off with the sorry, not sorry. One for one.
yes, sir.
Cool. So, I mean, it's gonna tie into our conversation, but I'll ask you this: if someone's to ask you, who is Mo? What are the things that you use to define your answer? So I'm not necessarily asking the question. I'm
Mm,
asking how do you construct your answer to that question? What elements, you know, comprise that answer,
yeah.
compose that
Um.
answer?
So it's a very interesting one. Um. I've wrestled, especially doing leadership coaching. I've really wrestled with that a lot. Um. You can even I've heard people say, "Oh, who are you?" You normally answer with the things that you do.
Mm,
Um, but some people answer with their lineage, their fathers, and blah blah blah. So I'm the son of Matt,
ancestors.
rare tear tear, this and that, and it's just like, oh, I'm the son of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or whatever. And um, I think so. The answer that I would give is a bit existential.
It's that kind
It's
of
a bit
question.
meta. It's a bit meta, but like I am the culmination of all of my experiences.
Okay.
That forms who Mo is.
Mm,
But practically, I will say um, I am who you experience me as, but yeah, I am more than you experience me as.
okay.
So I will then almost seat my identity
Mm,
in your experience of me,
mm,
but then shed light into your experience of me doesn't capture the totality of who I am because
okay.
your experience of me is different from Noah's experience of me, from Leah's
Mm,
experience of me.
mm,
But I
mm,
try to present, for me personally, I try to present the same me in every situation, in as much as some people would have a bit more proximity to that.
mm,
There are some people who have different faces in different places.
mm,
And so it's a curated version of who they are in different spaces. But I try to be consistent in different spaces. And so I would then see that questioning, I am who you've experienced me to be,
mm,
because that experience would be rooted in everything that I have gone through.
mm,
But at the same time, I recognize that you haven't experienced all of me. And
mm.
so I am still greater than you've experienced, but I am who you've experienced, for good or bad. And I have to embrace both the good and the bad elements of how you've experienced me. So yeah, I don't know if it answers the question because it
Well, no,
doesn't give.
that's the whole point. That was the whole point of it, wasn't it?
Mm,
Um, was that question? It wasn't so much the answer to the question. It was the ingredients that make up your answer, and I
mm,
think that's an important. I think that's a very self-aware answer, because there's an acknowledgement of, yes, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, as it were.
mm.
But then I like that second part where you take back and recognize I am not restricted to the visual you see or the
Yeah,
thing you experience. And
yeah,
as much as that's going to be your experience of me, that's not all that I am. I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
quite good. Cool. I'm happy with that. I'm happy
Oh,
with that.
dope,
Yeah.
dope. So my question bleeds into identity slightly as well.
Mm.
Um, Bit of context. When I first came to Christianity, I think it was the time there was a lot of talk about what is your purpose, what is God calling you to, blah
Mm.
blah blah, and that was when Rick Warren, purpose driven
Purpose
life,
driven life.
was really being
Mm.
championed and stuff. Um, so my question is, how have you approached the whole notion of what is your purpose,
Mm.
um, rooted in faith, rooted in Christianity,
Mm.
not just whimsical, what is your purpose as a human being or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, in faith, it's still kind of as a human being, what is your purpose, but also what is your God given purpose as Peter?
Mm. Mm.
Um, and secondly, how would you go about counseling someone who is specifically new to faith, who's
Mm.
consumed with this, what is my purpose?
Right. So I think outside of faith, right? Outside of faith, talking about purpose, I think that it's, if you don't believe at all, right, then we have a difficult thing. We have a difficult question to answer. Because if you don't believe at all, then I'm going to presume you hold an atheistic worldview, which is we're all here effectively by accident,
Mm,
right? It's hard to have purpose as an accident. If all you are
yeah.
is, you know, a circumstantial organization of chaos that exists within the period of your life, it's
Mm,
hard to have purpose because you're here by accident. Like,
yeah.
who gives you purpose? Purpose has to be defined by or given by someone who has intent for you, who has something for you to accomplish. So if you don't believe, then it's an even more difficult question. How do you
Yeah.
derive purpose as cells?
Mm,
As just cells, which is what effectively you are,
yeah.
if that's the
Yeah.
entire story. However, if you do have faith, then not even if you have faith, if you know God and you understand His existence is real, and He has called us to an existence, then there's inherently in His given us existence and inherently a accountability to Him for the existence that He has given us. If He has given you a life, then we owe Him something. We owe Him what we're going to do with that life. And that then puts into perspective the idea of His wrath, because
Mm,
He has literally given you a life. What are you going to do with it? And if you then bury it in the sand, understandably, He comes back and He's like, well, what did you do with the life I give you?
yeah.
I buried it in the sand. I did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't even consider what purpose you might have given me. He is well within His rights as your creator to do whatever He wants. If
Mm,
that's sending you to hell, whatever that might be, I'm sorry, but that's what it is.
yeah. You
It's
got to
it's
hold
just
that.
that. You got to hold that L. He created you. In
Yeah.
similar fashion to, we're both, poets. If you write a poem and it's not doing what we want to do, we can crumple that piece of paper up and throw it in the dustbin. No
Yeah.
one will call
Yeah.
us mean for it, right? Because
Mm,
it's not doing what we want to do. So that then frames my answer in, there are two elements to it. If you believe in God, I think there is the purpose that God has defined. The two greatest, or the summary of the commandments: love God, love your neighbor. He seems to have created us for love. We see that inherent in humanity. We seem to always find something to love, whether it's ourselves, whether it's a
Yeah.
pet, whether it's a partner we pair off, or multiple partners. We seem to
Mm.
be a creature designed for love. It's unsurprising then that we love God, love others, as His purpose, and that of course, that is realized in different ways. Loving God is serving God. Serving God is, preaching the gospel, being a representative, being a witness, all of these things. So that encompasses a lot. But then there's the other thing, which I think is God has created us fearfully and wonderfully, each with a unique set of traits, skills, personality, and we tend towards certain things. We tend to find ourselves thinking about or being passionate about a particular thing or set of things. And I think equally those are your purpose as well. If you can't help, you've seen one kung fu movie and you can't help but think about kung fu. Think about, oh, you could be a good kung fu person. You try it, you love it. You're in there. You can't help but not to notice time pass. You're there for 2 hours. Feels like a moment.
Yeah.
I think you're called to that. I think
Yeah.
that's something you should do. Something you should pursue. Something that God's built into you. And so I think it's that's the second thing is, what are those things that you naturally find yourself wanting to tend towards that aren't sinful? Of course, yeah, we'd all like to bang the hottest chick, yeah, but that's not your purpose. That's something
The
designed
hottest
specifically.
in bank is your wife.
It should be, but those things that aren't sinful, that inherently you find yourself passionate about, you find yourself enjoying, you find yourself just, it's so easy for you to absorb knowledge on archaeology. Everyone else that you speak to about it is just, oh, this is so boring, you're dusting stuff off. But you find it so fascinating. You are called to that. Go and do that. And so outside of loving God and loving people and everything that means, I think it's the things that you find yourself drawn to, the things that you find yourself entering the flow state in, not noticing time, being so engrossed, being happy to absorb all the knowledge on. Those are the things that you're those also define your purpose, and you should pursue those. Yeah,
Really good.
So
Yeah. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I really wanted to. You touched on everything that I thought about in terms of your natural inclinations, not seeing your purpose as this divine, like nebulous thing, but just I really enjoy drawing. Maybe that's something that God has put into me.
Exactly.
Or I really enjoy just helping children learn. Maybe that's something that God has put into me.
Exactly.
And giving room to these things, and just allowing them. So it's like you don't necessarily need to go on this 40-day spiritual fast or anything. Just lean into your not natural, but it's like lean into the things that give you joy.
Yeah.
So long as it can be done to the glory of God. Like
exactly.
1 Corinthians 10:31.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 10:31. That's my verse. That's my verse right there. If eating and drinking, self-serving things must be done to God's glory, how much more everything else? Yeah.
Come on.
There you go. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, I'm happy with that.
Sweet. Sorry, not sorry. Done. I think we survived it. The topic for today. So, dude, I don't actually listen to the news. I'm realizing now, I don't actually listen to the news. So I don't know anything going on in terms of like social culture, whatever. But, and I hinted to this in our WhatsApp group. Let me set the scene. So as you know, I've had an injury, knee injury. You don't realize how much you use your knees until you can't use your knees, and then it's like, yo, I can't even walk, I can't sit, what am I gonna do? I can't straighten my leg fully, I can't stretch. It's stress. But for about over a month now, almost 2 months, I haven't been able to train. I'm only getting back into it now. haven't been cleared. I had a physio today. She's like, yeah, get back into it. It's cool. Go light. But
Mm.
yeah, she
Your
found
light
it.
is not my light.
The physio, the physio I was at, she was like, yes, when you injured yourself, you were squatting. And she was like, yeah, cool. Were you squatting with any weight? I was like, yeah. How much weight? I was like, She's like, oh, light. I said 140. She was like, oh yeah, light. And then she had to laugh at herself. She's like, what? And it's like, was this your first time? I was like, no, 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 that's not even my last set. She's like, yeah, don't go back to that. Take your time. Take your time.
Work your
But
way
build
back
back
into
up.
maybe start at like 70 halfway and then
Bro,
yeah,
I swear we've quarter squatted 200 before.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Quarter
I
squat.
would say a half squat for my ego, but yeah,
I saw that video one time. I was like, what were we doing?
bro, even bench was just
We did it.
yeah.
I mean, you built some strength, but anyway, that's beside the point. So I haven't been able to train, and as I'm building back up to it, I'm having to be wise about sort
Mm,
of not jumping in at the deep end.
yeah.
But I started to ask myself this, and this is what I was struggling with, right? I haven't, I fully intend to get back into MMA training, fully,
Mm,
completely. I intend to do it. But I started asking myself, what's the difference between an addiction that you need to sort of function and a positive pursuit? So I fully believe in, like, maybe a bit of behind the scenes. I think it's important for a man to be dangerous. I think so. Like,
yeah.
call me Jordan Peterson. I don't care. I
I
think it's
think Robert
important.
or Anita or Dre or both of them just messaged on, just
Oh,
commented on YouTube.
yeah, the high. Yeah.
Now I can trash talk to your face, boy. Yeah, period.
From the safety of your home. Um, yeah, so I think a man should be dangerous. For me, it's important for me to know that I know how to fight,
Mm,
right? In terms of fitness, in terms of health, in terms of stress relief, but also in terms of confidence, like just
mm,
confidence. You know, if someone busts into the house, if I can't take them, I want to be able to buy some time, so Anita can get out with Zara, sort of
yeah,
thing. It's important for me. But then where I've not been able to train and I've not had that stress relief, I have noticed is feeling more tired, feeling less motivated, just mood a bit down, you know.
yeah,
And we'll push through. But I'm sort of asking myself, what's the line between an addiction, where we also know addictions or withdrawal symptoms from addictions have the same effects.
yeah,
You're less motivated, you don't want to get on, you don't do
yeah.
anything. And a positive pursuit that is challenging, that is addictive, you know.
Mm,
Where's the line between those two? And I've
mm,
been struggling with that on some to some degree, where I've not been able to train by virtue of an injury,
yeah,
and it's having an effect on me. And I'm starting to wonder, I guess, to bring in the Bible verse before I let you answer, and I've gone on for a bit, you know,
no, no, no.
is this one of those things that's, yes, permissible, but has it now had control over me? Or
Yeah,
now have I
yeah,
been brought under
yeah,
it? Or is it a positive pursuit that is useful, that, yeah, you can continue going? As I said, it's not like I feel like I shouldn't do it anymore. I don't have that conviction.
yeah.
I'm just thinking through, sort of. I don't have that
It's like,
conviction
I
at
don't
all.
have that conviction. Yeah,
It's
like
important to say because,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
I think
what are your thoughts on that?
I think it is circumstantial. It is individualistic
Mm,
in the
mm,
way it plays out. Um, there is almost a sense of like physical exercise definitely has an impact on you mentally, emotionally, physically. Um, and so if that has almost become a mechanism or means of just maintenance, which has its benefits, when
mm,
once you stop, there will be this knock-on effect. There will be a knock-on effect. I think where it becomes dangerous is, and this can creep in very subtly, is when it attaches itself to how you view yourself in your identity. If part of how you view yourself is this gym going guy, or this even in gym going girl, where it's a part of the package of who you are, that can be very dangerous. Because when you are more than the gym.
So,
Okay.
so yeah,
So
the
yeah.
Emmy says, if it makes you angry, okay. The Emmy says, I still don't know if this is Robert or Drea, but anything you can't drop or stop doing, you're addicted to, which is a fair point. Yeah.
But would you say the same about praying and reading your Bible?
Well, I'll actually even rephrase that in saying, is it a bad thing? Is addiction in and of itself a bad thing, or can you be addicted to the right thing, like praying or reading your Bible?
Mm.
Because we can all agree
Yeah.
those are inherently good things. Praying and reading your Bible are
Again,
intrinsically good.
again,
Oh, there you
arguably,
go. There you
if
go.
you're
Let's hear the
doing it,
heresy.
yeah, if you're doing it as a, again, it's become attached to your identity. Like,
Yeah.
man reads my Bible, innit? Like, I
Yeah.
pray, like I do
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm just like, raw, your heart may not be in the best of places for
Well,
that.
so here's let me ask another question then. Is it bad for something positive to be attached to your self definition?
Okay, so I'll tell you, and this is an extremity.
Mm.
I tend to fall into extremes.
Yeah.
Um, I started gym,
Okay.
and
So
I
it
would
is
be
Robert. Sorry, just on the side,
okay.
it is Robert, and yeah, cool. He's saying praying and reading the
I
Bible,
started
but no
gym.
growth. It's a problem.
I started gym,
Yeah.
but but when I started gym, I'd be in the gym for, no word of a joke, for like 5 hours.
Mm.
That is unhealthy and
Mm.
unhelpful in however you think about it.
Yeah.
Gradually that kind of came down, but when I hit uni, obviously QM had a gym in the uni, so I was living on campus. I would go to the gym, come back. I felt that God wanted me to fast,
Mm.
and I had a conversation with God saying, "Right, the time you want me to fast, start fasting. That's gym time." And
Yes.
obviously, I need to eat after gym to ensure that, like, I replenish the things
Go
in
get
it.
in the anabolic window.
Yeah, I need to replenish the things so I don't like the gains in it. And
Yeah.
then God had to sit me down to say, "Yo, like, in as much as you started this to be healthy, to be all of these things, it's become a problem."
Mm.
I didn't recognize that.
Mm.
And even Bible study. So I used to bang, when I was on my Paul Washer vibe,
Mm.
I used to bang Bible study on a daily basis. But I would bang Bible study by myself. And this was in conjunction with the gym. Gym, Bible study, as well as trying to do my uni stuff. I would bang Bible study by myself, but I realized that I became knowledgeable but cold towards people.
Mm.
And so there had to be the shifting away from the heart behind it and submitting myself to God first, even in doing these things. So it's a tricky one because, again, I say I tend to fall into extremes.
Mm.
And so I'm having to be very intentional about trying to remain in the middle. And I may have fallen into an extreme about being in the
Being
middle.
in the middle, extremely in the middle.
um, and so it's trying to, and so I think it always comes back to an issue of the heart,
Mm.
an issue of the heart. And is this a case of, like, in being able to physically protect your household and stuff like that, the challenge of seeing God as your protector, as your banner, even above my physical capabilities to secure my family. Because I I could be the baddest guy at my MMA gym, but this Don just came from Thailand. He's been doing up the Muay Thai over there. So yeah, my little kicks and that ain't doing nothing to him. Or he's got the jiu-jitsu black belt and stuff. So I'm trying to do, you just
Yeah.
choke him man out. And so it's there is this, and I think it's particularly insightful for Christians to ask the question of how much are we relying on our efforts in comparison to our dependency on God. Because half of these things inherently aren't bad. Football isn't bad. But if you start worshipping your football team, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
And so it's when our hearts almost cross a certain threshold, then it's almost like, okay, how do we navigate this?
Yeah.
How do we ensure that God remains the center, and all of these things kind of float around it?
So let me dig into this a little bit, because for me, one thing that martial arts gives me is the humility to know that I ain't the baddest person. Like, we've trained together, you've called me this, and it sticks with me. You called me a glutton for punishment, right? And it sticks with me because I notice it in the gym. I'm running to the strongest people to beat me up because that's how I learn, and you challenge yourself and all of that, facing adversity, like that's so it's not so much. I say that to say I never feel like I'm the toughest person, and in addition to that, at the back of my mind, and this is for me from a kid, there's the idea of, if I'm not fighting to God's glory, I will lose no matter who I'm fighting. The way I will not start a fight, like I will walk away from the fight if I can, right? And again, this is the old school Power Rangers, don't use your powers for personal gain rule. But at the back of my mind somewhere, there is this instinctive understanding that if you're not fighting for God's glory, you will lose. So it's like, even then, it's like, I'm not gonna pick a fight because I think I'm bigger than a person. Because I'll lose. I feel like I'm not fighting on the side of good, I will lose. So there's that aspect of things that for me then hints at, okay, maybe my heart isn't in the wrong place. And then now let me give you this, and this is where my theology is going to get challenged, right? Job, the story of Job. Before he lost everything, God pointed him out to Satan. God said, have you noticed my servant Job? Satan then said, you've put a hedge of protection around him, right? What we noticed, however, was before that, Job was doing certain things. Job would always give a sacrifice for his kids after they have a party, regardless of whether or not he knew they'd done something wrong. He was serving God. He was doing everything right. Here's my question is, if God hadn't chosen to use Job in that way to demonstrate his sovereignty, as we see in the story of Job, I think that's one thing I initially misunderstood about Job, was it's actually about God's sovereignty more than it is about anything else. If he hadn't, Job would have carried on being a wealthy, successful guy, and if you look at it from the outside, he was doing the right thing. And I don't want to say that was making him successful, but I can't help but think there's a correlation there. He was doing something right? And everything around him, the things that he was doing, seemed to be right. His heart evidently sort of became a bit self-righteous, because that's what God called him out on. But if he wasn't self-righteous and he didn't fall into that, I would theorize he'd be fine. Like, the entirety of the time, he'd be fine. And so that then brings me to, if there are good things that we're doing and we are able to protect our heart from falling into these sort of self-righteousness or having the wrong intention, you're Bible studying for 10 hours
Mm,
only to say that you've Bible studied for 10 hours, if you're not going down that path,
yeah,
then is there still an issue with attaching your identity to some of these things? I am the guy that, oh, Job is the guy that, sacrifices to God because he's scared his kids might have done something wrong and he
yeah,
knows that you have to give a sacrifice.
yeah,
If that's not rooted in some sort of self righteousness, is that a bad thing? And
yeah. I think, yeah,
I don't know if it is. I feel like it's not, but this is why I'm submitting to the fairness. Let's
I think
refine.
the distinction between good things and God things comes to mind.
Yeah.
Um, and again, the arguably in the one thing that is revealed in Job is God's character. So
Mhm.
even in like the revelation of God's sovereignty in the matters of like the devil couldn't do anything outside of explicit permission from God,
Mhm. Mhm.
which even speaks into the active and passive permission of God or God doing something,
Mhm.
whether it's actively God doing something or passively by allowing it to happen. There is this notion of Job didn't Job not understanding the character of who God is, the
Mhm.
character of God, in that there was this there wasn't this recognition of God's graciousness over his life and over his children, in that he felt and it could have been his perception of it's my sacrifices that are keeping my children alive if they have
Mhm.
done something wrong,
Mhm.
um, without recognizing that it's the graciousness of God
Mhm.
that's keeping them alive. Um, and so there's this revelation of the character of God. And so there's almost this, arguably, this perception of in God permitting the devil to um, essentially torture Job, Job got a clearer view of God
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
was able to then interact with God in a much in a way that is more in line with who God is and
Mhm.
who he is in relations to God.
Mhm.
Um, and so that then comes into this realm of our conversation, in that even with God challenging me around Bible study and gym, it allowed me to view God differently and also see myself as a reflection of that and seeing, okay, I am not living in line with who he has presented himself to be. There's one thing that I enjoy about you, which is you tend to approach every situation with a mindset of being able to learn something from it.
Mhm.
And so even when you get into a fight, there's almost this, what can I learn from this?
Mhm.
Um, when we're sparring, when we like whatever it is like, what can I take? What is being spoken? What wisdom is in this? And I see that as a real strength. And so even when you're like, even as I fight, I see it as like there is God as a motivator for this, which leads me into the thought of um, the person's disposition
Mhm.
or natural inclinations will also determine whether the pursuit is right or wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
So because you have a student's mind in pretty much everything that you do,
Mhm.
um, there is the recognition of I could be wrong.
Mhm.
There is a recognition of this may not be the right, like this is where my conviction is leading me, but I am happy to be wrong,
Mhm.
knowing that I will learn and hopefully readjust and kind of get into the right space.
Yeah.
Um, and so that moves you into a more malleable state where it's like, okay, I can take this L because it's going to lead me somewhere better.
Mhm.
There's that recognition. And so I say that to say, even in the evaluation of, is this like, how is this impacting my identity and how I view myself and stuff like that, there is this inherently um, honorable attribute within that to even have this open discussion. And so I think that that bodes well and even reflects a heart that is submitted and is actively trying not to make things an idol.
Mm.
So even if that is the case,
Mm.
I see it as you're in a good position to make an adjustment,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I see that as even in this space, potentially your view of God or your relationship with God being challenged, being shaped, being deepened to some degree. In that, okay, if you're considering whether there is something there, then it almost goes back to how do you see your relationship with God? Who do
Mm.
you view God as, and who do you view Him to be in His relationship with you?
Mm.
Um, do you almost see it as without doing this, this won't happen?
Mm.
Without going to the gym, I won't be able to physically protect my family.
Mm. Not necessarily, no. No. Because I think it's it becomes a thing of it's good to have a plan, but it's better to know God's in control, if that makes sense. And I don't think those two have to go. Um, I don't think those two can't coexist, if
Mm,
that makes sense. I don't think
yeah,
it's I don't think it's necessary that it's either you completely trust God or you completely trust yourself, right? But rather, I think it's I completely trust God, and I think that I could be one of the things that He uses. So let me get to the gym.
facts,
But
facts.
even stuff like having some sort of security, like locking the doors and checking the doors at night. Yeah.
Mm,
It's not like that's going to stop me for or does stop anything from happening, but it feels almost like that's a discipline that God's put in place because if the door
yeah,
is open, then the guys can just come in.
yeah.
There could be an angel standing in front. Yeah, that's fine. But then maybe God's instead of the angel just saying lock your door. Makes
I
sense.
see that as good stewardship.
Exactly, exactly.
I see that as good
So
stewardship. And so, yeah, there is this notion of stewardship
yeah,
in line with like God is giving you this. How are you stewarding it well? Even in trust, recognizing that this still is God's thing, and
yeah,
it belongs to Him. So like this physical body belongs to Him, and so even honoring God with how you're treating the body and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think, as you said, it's. I think it does come down to sort of your heart
Mm,
and being aware or being self-aware enough to know that that doesn't just the fact that I shouldn't have this heart doesn't mean you don't. And
facts.
so it's like I was thinking fail with faith because
Yeah.
yeah, if you trust in
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
and you're moving, if you're wrong, He will correct you because you trust Him.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
you're right, then more power to you. So cool. So I think
Yeah. I can vibe with that. Fell with faith.
yeah.
Also recognizing that um, I don't agree with all of what I've heard this lady say, but she
Mm.
said something, and I was like, "Yo,
Who is it?
if
Juanita
I
Bynum.
no 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 no, my old vicar's wife,
Oh,
um,
okay.
because she doesn't believe in hell." And I'm just like, "Yo,
Oh,
interesting."
good for you. Good for you.
Um, but she said God's will is not a tightrope; is more like a field.
Mm.
So, and it's like, if you make one mistake, you haven't fallen out of His will to eternal condemnation. It's a field where you can almost veer off and still keep exploring and stuff while still being within His will. Unless you like depart from the faith, you haven't really stepped out. Um, and I found that there are caveats there, but I found that super helpful because I realize that for the most part, I have understood God's will as being a tightrope, whether I got it right or wrong. It's either I'm idolizing this or I'm not, without recognizing that our hearts are a lot more complex. And so you can almost have a tinge of both. And it's by the Spirit that we're able to then veer off to the right direction. And God allows that, in that maturity and stuff kind of inches us more and more into alignment with who He is. So
I
yeah,
guess that becomes a more important thing, isn't it? Is that consistent being led by the Spirit, or submitting to the Spirit, I should even say. Even when you are sort of doing things and maybe you're not sure, or you're wondering, or you're uncertain, then still submit to the Spirit as you're doing it, and fail with faith. Yeah.
and it's the interesting thing is, obviously, without faith, it is impossible to please Him. Which then leads to your statement: with faith, it is impossible to not please Him.
Displease Him. Yeah.
Again, arguable, but the sentiment stands in that if you are genuinely doing something out of faith, even if you make a mistake, I still believe that God would honor that. And if the mistake is detrimental, God can almost still use that as part of your story in navigating you to where you're meant to be. So I don't see it as, if you make a mistake in faith, it derails you from where God is taking you. You may suffer consequences and you're going to have to walk with those consequences, but it doesn't derail where God is taking you. Even David sleeping with Bathsheba didn't derail him from being the greatest king. It did have implications, and he didn't sleep with her in faith. Like, I'm not even trying to.
This wasn't feigning with faith. That's not that. That's not that.
But in repentance and in humility, and in accepting his mistake and the punishment that came with it, God still navigated him, and He used that story for our benefit, to see that even David wasn't without fault.
Still called a man after God's own heart.
Yes. So I think it's even one that's challenging me, because there are a few things I'm just like, okay, how do you be consistent and see consistency as its own thing, in terms of, I am not making this thing I am being consistent in a part of my identity. It is a part of my stewardship, in that God has placed these things in front of me and I'm being consistent in them, and I am serving in that capacity. So whether it's gym, whether it's like fatherhood, whatever it is, being consistent, but not allowing being a good father to be your identity. Because God wants you to be a good father. Like, in that role, He wants that. But that's not your identity.
Well, I guess the question then is, can it be? Should it not be?
I think it plays into my statement initially, the sum total of my experiences. But I am not, what you experience is the sum total of my experiences, but I am almost more than these experiences also. There is this
But then, so does the more than there also contain your intentions? And can an identity or something that you consider part of your identity be an intention? I want to be a good father. And so I want to be a good father, and I want it to be such a good father that that's something that defines me. I am a good father. In addition to other things, in addition to I am also a survivor of, or I'm also someone that's had this experience. As you said, the culmination of experiences is true, but then in the more that you rightly, I think, identify, is that more also comprising intent
That's a good question. I would almost,
ambition, etc.
I would, I would side intention to character rather than identity, because your character is the sum total of your actions and like your intentions, which then flows out into actions. So, like consistent character is like this person is consistent. Like I am consistently late to church. That's almost a characteristic associated with me now.
That's his character.
That's his character. He's late. And so when I'm early, people are like, "Oh, raw, you're early," because it's out of character. Now, some people may conflate character with identity.
Yeah.
You're the late
Where
one.
would you draw the distinction between the two?
I would draw the distinction from. I would say character would be intentions and actions,
Okay.
and identity would almost be the consistency of how people experience you and how you experience yourself. So character being action based and identity being experience based.
Okay. Could you unpack that a little bit? Could you, I don't know,
So
maybe give an example?
yeah, so your so it's almost like your habits determine your character. So if you've got a habit of waking up at 5, doing a devotional, praying, cleaning the house, blah blah blah, those are all characteristics, and these are intentional decisions you have taken to do these actions, and it forms a characteristic. But then your wife waking up at 6, seeing you hunched over, praying, knowing that you've already cleaned the house, that almost becomes how she experiences you. And so almost as part of who she knows, so her experience of your character forms how she perceives you as a person.
Right.
And I think that perception of who you are is how people identify you in terms of how they've experienced you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if your identity, how you've experienced yourself is, I need to be in the gym, then I would say I wouldn't want to experience myself as a set of actions.
Okay.
I would want to experience myself as more relational than as a series of actions. And so I would say the consistency of going to the gym, I would like to slide that into character of being consistent. But then experiencing myself, I would like to experience a warm, loving individual who is devoted to God and loves the people around him. So I would rather that be my identity than banging gym or being an adult photographer or whatever. I would almost like these things to be an overflow of my identity as one who loves God and loves the people around him. And then it kind of flows out into these character traits of trying to go to the gym to keep myself healthy, to be able to play with my kids, pick them up, throw them around, blah blah blah. And so these character choices then almost reinforce the identity that I want or that I believe I have in Jesus. And then those characteristics hopefully will align with the identity as people experience me. So there won't be any hypocrisy within my character and the identity.
Okay, so almost one feeding the other.
Yes.
Or one being the impetus behind the other. The character that you've built determines the experience that others have of you, that then informs their understanding of your identity or how they identify you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I would like there to be a case. I would like it to be a case of, for me, anyways. There won't be, but I would like my identity to almost be bigger than my characters, than my characteristic choices. In that when people experience me, they don't just experience the gym head or whatever, But even in the gym, when we're banging weights, they still experience a person who is invested in them. So even as we're lifting weights, I'm still like, raw. So like, so the way that we were able to still break bread whilst lifting weights. And so our experience of each other was that, yes, we're pushing each other in the gym, but we're still having these vulnerable conversations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think so. I think there's an element there of maybe unfairly also reducing that to, because we're talking in the context of just gym, reducing it to going to gym, because the gym head that you experience, you could also be experiencing through his consistency. Like,
Yes.
because he's consistent at the gym, because that's built into his character, he's consistent in coming to pick you up, you know, from home, or in always listening to you, or something like. So you're still experiencing the gym head. It's just you're experiencing the consistency that being a gym head has built in his character, in however he's serving you, or however you're relying on that person. So I think what I'm taking is the identity almost ends up being other people's, it ends up being formed, beauty in the eyes of the beholder. But what we should focus on is building character. And in building character, in being, in having a good character, people have a good experience of you.
I would almost push it slightly, going back to what we said initially, in that the character we build stems from how we view ourselves. It's been, because I think just saying my identity is a child of God, it says a lot and it says nothing at the same time.
Facts.
It says it's just like what does that mean? And that's why I was like, okay, fundamentally how I want people to experience me is to experience my love for God. Experience me loving God and loving my neighbor as I love myself. I almost extend it to loving the world that He has created. Particularly because, as Isaiah 6 mentions, the whole world is filled with His glory. So if I am to rightly see God, then I'm to rightly see God in the things that reflect Him, including myself, including other people, but also including like chickens, including trees, including whatever. Knowing that the whole world is filled with His glory. So now I'm not going vegan, fam. I'm a see God's glory as I eat the chicken. I thank
it tastes glorious.
Hey, the peri sauce.
But just on that, in saying you want people to experience you and see your love of God, they will experience that if you've been working on your love of God. They won't experience that if all you do is talk about it. If that makes sense.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean by in doing that, you're building. Maybe let's get away with the terms, but in loving God and in living that out, in your devotion to Him, in your following His leading, in your care for His people, those are actions that you're doing, right? And if those actions become consistent, and that's what you consistently do, that's what you consistently strive for, then again, removing the words, whether that's character, whether that's identity, this is what you do. You love God. These are your actions. When people experience you, they experience that.
Yes.
And so they experience that because you've been doing it.
Yes. What I was trying to hint towards was, I don't want people to, in as much as people will experience my habits and my character, I want them to experience the motivation behind it also.
Okay.
if that makes sense. So
It does, but how would they do that?
and that's the thing that makes it, my identity shouldn't be my characteristics and my habits,
Mm.
but my habits and characteristics should stem from the identity.
Okay. Okay. So
And
then
so,
you're defining the identity, are you?
yes.
Yeah.
So it's a case of being called a good and faithful steward, good and faithful servant
Mm-hmm.
is, or good and faithful steward, arguably could be an identity.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue against that because he sees us as sons in Jesus. So steward is almost a job description.
Okay.
And so
Being a good son, could that be an identity? And if
that
that
could
is
be
an
an identity.
identity,
Yes, that is an
yeah,
identity.
yeah,
Um, and so stewardship is
mm-hmm.
a job description,
Right,
arguably.
yeah,
I would argue for that, in that everything that God has given us, we've been called to steward and steward
yeah,
wisely and well.
yeah,
And so, in my stewardship of this body, of this household, of this family, of the job, of everything, um, what you're experiencing, hopefully, is my faithful stewardship.
mm-hmm.
And it can be very easily to conflate my identity with my stewardship.
Mm.
But there's a reason why I'm being a faithful steward.
And that's because you're a
And
son.
that's because I'm a son.
Mm.
And so I would want you somehow to experience the reason I am being a faithful steward,
Mm.
as opposed to just experiencing me as a steward apart from that reason.
Right.
Because that will be a very shallow experience of me. So if you
That's
only
that's.
experience, yeah,
Interestingly, that was the word I was going to use because that would require a deeper experience of you to
yes,
know I'm experiencing the son more, not just the good steward. Because you can meet someone who works for a company and
yeah,
they're good at their company, they care about it, but then it's a job. It's just a job, you know.
yeah,
But then you could also meet someone who is building their father's company
yeah,
and they're doing the same thing, but there's something more to it because there is that familial,
yeah,
link
yeah.
as well. So that's something to mull over, I think,
And I think
as
that's
well.
where it takes me back to my identity being what you've experienced me as,
Mm,
which would be the set of characteristics and blah blah blah. Um, but also my identity is more than you've experienced. So
mm,
hopefully there's a depth to it that you're still yet to uncover, or proximity
mm,
that you haven't reached yet.
mm,
But I also recognize that in saying character, there are traits of thought patterns and blah 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 that kind of
mm,
falls into identity. So if someone is always swearing,
mm-hmm.
that forms a part of how you experience them.
Yeah, yeah,
Now they may be spitting facts, but
mm.
after every 2 words, there's an F bomb, there's a whatever, and
Shout out Gary V. No one hears from him nowadays, but that's
yeah,
legit Gary V.
he had his heyday. I think he may
Mm,
be trailing off at the moment,
mm,
and so that almost shapes the way that you experience him.
mm.
Um,
That's
and so I
interesting.
recognize that your experience of someone is more nuanced than just their character.
Yeah.
But the main thing that we tend to experience is their character. So even with Gary V, his work ethic,
Mm,
that's what put him on the map.
mm,
That hustler mentality,
mm,
and he tried to like elicit some of the mindset behind it.
mm,
So even with Kobe Bryant, Mamba
mm,
mentality,
mm.
that's what people saw.
Yeah.
But then he tried to explain, like, I don't want anyone to think that they can out train me.
Mm.
Bro, that's mad.
Yeah.
But that's the mindset behind the characteristics that
Mm,
he portrayed.
mm,
So yeah, it's almost, some would say mindset. I
mm,
wouldn't say mindset, especially from a faith perspective, because I think is bigger than mindset. It's a
It's
spiritual thing.
well, and that's the thing, because as I'm thinking about it, just as you said, that Son and Steward illustration, I think really drives it home for me, because we've done karate before, and in Kyokushin karate, it's an outsider looking in, it's vicious, bare
Yes.
knuckle, it's vicious. However, there is something to the fact that in our training, like Darren and Aniel and what's his name, Alan,
Um,
or recognize something about our faith through it, which I think is that's sort of, I think it's forming in my head, and that's the thing is, like, in all the martial arts I've done, people will note how nice you are, kind you are, polite, and stuff
mm,
like that. All attributes that I think speak to, oh, I'm only this way because God saved me, and I see you as an image bearer, and as much as I'm trying to
yeah,
choke you unconscious, I see
yeah,
you as an image bearer, and so there's that level of Christ coming through still, even in those things. I think that's the exact thing with the son and the good steward. Even we're not even talking about bad stewards, but the good steward, he's
yeah,
doing the work, but then he's just doing a job.
yeah,
It's just a job description. Whereas the
yeah,
son, there is more to it, that's maybe
yes.
even inexplicable almost, but is there, and is tangible, is recognizable. So that's good. That's sticking with me actually, and
Yeah, I think this has been super helpful on my end as well.
mm,
So it's almost with going back to like the gym example and even fitness and stuff, that that would that speaks to your diligence as a steward
mm,
in terms of characteristics. You've built this character trait. And so in trying to recognize if this is becoming an idol, it's almost looking at this habit and saying, okay, what is the motivation for this habit?
mm,
Is it
yeah.
still rightly stewarding the body that God has given me in
Exactly.
order to
Rightly
protect me
stewarding the
and
body,
use them?
rightly stewarding the family He's
Yes.
giving you,
Yeah.
rightly being available to even study, to do what God has called you to do. It still roots from
Yeah.
what God wants, or at
Yeah.
least my interpretation at this point in time of what God
Yeah.
wants. Um,
Yeah.
which is actually, very comforting for me for some
I
reason.
was just like,
But yeah.
on a practical, sometimes I'll be like, bro, why am I going to the gym? Because I want to be hench, innit? Man wants to be hench. And then I'm like, okay, cool. We need to pray about this.
Yeah.
And so,
When you find you're looking in the mirror a bit too much,
you don't like that. Man, it's like the mirror's right in front of the shower. It's just like, oh, swear down. All right, cool. And yeah, so that almost becomes a litmus test.
yeah,
This
yeah,
this character trait. Why is this so important to me? Like when I stopped after Leia was born and I stopped training, I saw someone who I used to work with in Sainsbury's, and the first comment this person said was, "Wow, you've gained weight."
stress. Was this person African? Because that
Yes,
be what our African one to do. Hey,
and and the,
you've put on.
and the thing
Wanted
as
to help
well,
my mental health.
this person wasn't a slim chicken. Like wasn't, but because everyone who knew me from Sainsbury's knew me as hench, that cut me to my core, and I was like, "Nah, I need to go back to the gym." And it was because I needed to get back to that image, and it had nothing to do with God. And right there, it's like that's a problem. That doesn't
Okay.
align with
Yeah.
the motivation of sonship, which
Yeah.
is my identity, sonship. I'm still, and it's like I'm still experiencing what it means to be a son. And so even my experience of myself is still yes and no. It's still there is more to me than even I have experienced. And so my identity is still being formed in that I haven't experienced the fullness of who God has made me. So yeah, I think that's been helpful for me because I've been wrestling with it as well. Yeah, there's been a few things that I kind of feel like God is putting on my heart to do, and I'm just like, and it's just like, okay, if I start from identity as a son, and then I kind of let it flow out from there, how does it impact these things? How does it shape them? that's a
This
good
is dope.
space to kind of start the conversation from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this is dope, and for me, it's very affirming, because I notice the questions I ask myself, or the things that I end up judging myself on, becomes based on, like, what can I do? And so even in terms of fighting, it's like, oh, I'm not training, I'm not building the skill, I will not be able to protect. I won't be able to
Mm.
do the things I'm not physically capable. Am I getting tired chasing around Z, helping her play and stuff? I'm not able to do those things, and so train. And those things stem from stewardship, stem from understanding God has blessed me with these things
Yeah.
as a father, being His son, being wanting to be responsible for my wife, for my kid. And so it's very affirming, and that stewardship, sonship, contrast, I think
Mm.
was especially helpful. So yeah,
It's dope, man.
we've hit 110. Let's
Yes, sir.
round off there. I think
Yeah.
this is dope. I think this has been really really good
Yeah, it's
for
been
me.
super helpful. It's been really
Yeah,
helpful for me as well.
yeah, cool. All right, let's hook the man them up.
Yeah.
Should I? Can I go first?
Yeah, yeah, feel free.
Yeah, cool. So surprisingly, my hookup is going to be One Piece, the Netflix live action adaptation. Because I mean, thus far, Netflix haven't been Netflix haven't been particularly good with their
Yeah.
live action
Yeah.
adaptations. We don't talk about Death Note anymore. Um,
Bro, bro.
Cowboy Bebop was,
Yeah.
but One Piece thus far has been good. I still think personally, and I know you disagree with this, and I don't care. My all-time best live-action adaptation of any anime, Rurouni Kenshin. I have to put it in there because till this day, and then I found out that the guy that plays Rurouni Kenshin has the same birthday as me. To the
Yeah.
day, to the
Bias.
day.
Bias.
But he comes in interestingly because the guy that plays the villain in the final entry of that franchise is
Hmm.
actually Zoro, the guy that plays Zoro in One Piece. One
Okay.
Piece. So
Oh,
it all
sick.
ties together nicely. But yeah, the One Piece live action thus
Yeah.
far has not been disappointing. I'm like 4 episodes in,
Okay.
um,
I've been
and
hearing good
yeah,
things about it.
it's
I
been
was
quite
even
good.
hearing the Japanese fans were feeling it as well.
Yeah. Well, the creator, I just saw today, actually, I just saw a short that the creator of One Piece, Ido, whatever his name is, was talking to the character that plays Luffy
Okay.
and said to him, was like, oh, once I met you, it was just like, I really feel like you are the character I drew. And the guy was tearing up and everything. And it was like, it was a very, I don't know, it felt really nice. But yeah,
I did. I
yeah.
saw a picture as well of the director
Mm,
showing Luffy and the character Luffy and Zoro, a scene from the anime
right,
as they were shooting.
right.
So it's almost like they're being as close and actually
Yeah,
following,
yeah.
yeah, which is dope.
Yeah,
And I think,
I just wonder how long they're gonna keep it going because One Piece is still going on.
yeah,
It's still going on now. They haven't found the One
the
Piece as far as
other
I know. But yeah,
live action that I vibes with was Full Metal Alchemist.
that was good. That was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never watched the anime fully, so
Okay.
I only have the live action.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard mixed. I've heard good, mixed to good reviews of Full Metal. But yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, that's sick. I'm definitely gonna try watch that. I've been hearing good things about it. I've got a shameless plug
Hey,
as my hookup.
the topology of Sutton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a commissioned exhibition happening from the 16th of
Mm-hmm.
September through to the 23rd. So the 16th is a Saturday, next week Saturday, through to the next 2 weeks Friday. Um, it's going to be in a park called Queen Mary Park. If you go to my Instagram, the pictures there, the details are there, what it's about. So my Instagram is at hmuseh. So HMUSEH. Um, yeah, the details are there. I'm going to be trying to do a promotional thing throughout the week. But yeah, that's a little shameless plug.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and I
yeah.
think Actually, no, I was about to drop another anime, but I've dropped it already, so I'm not gonna say it.
Cool.
Dropped it already.
Cool. Well, yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah. Well, you can drop it again. You can use Robert's
Yeah,
account
actually, let me.
because he's not here because he's a pagan.
He's not here. I was gonna say Hell's Kitchen, but I've already. Is it Hell's Kitchen? No,
Hell's
Hell's
Paradise.
Paradise.
Yeah.
I keep
Have you
saying Hell's
finished
Kitchen.
it? Have you
I
finished the
finished
season?
it.
Yeah.
There's only 13 episodes. One season, 13 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I finished it. Um. Oh, I haven't seen it, so don't hold me to it. But I'm trying to watch the new Star Wars situation on
Ahsoka.
Disney Plus. Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she. So
Yeah.
I had watched Clone Wars, the animation,
All right.
and Ahsoka was like my favorite character.
All right.
So to
Yeah.
see her spin off, I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was a
yeah.
fan casting as well. That was like what's his name? Boss Logic. He does like lots of like stuff on Instagram. He's like an illustrator or something like that. He does lots of that. I think he did a imagining of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and that was like part of the pathway to her getting the role. I think she's perfect in it. So I've been watching that.
Yeah.
So I never watched any of the Star Wars, but because of her, I'm watching Ahsoka, and I did that thing you hate where I go and watch a recap. So I watch a recap of Rebels.
Okay.
Everything
Okay.
to sort
Now,
of
do you know
build my
what?
knowledge up for this, but yeah, it's good.
With Star Wars, I can vibe with it because Star Wars is a very comprehensive.
Long.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I can vibe with that.
yeah,
But I want to start watching it. It's
yeah.
like
No, it's good.
an hour
It's
each
good so far.
episode. And I'm just
Yeah. Yeah,
stamina.
yeah. The annoying thing for me is I'm spoiled. I don't like weekly stuff anymore. Like how dare you make it become every week? I'm gonna wait till it finishes and then watch it all in one go. But I also don't have the time to do that, so I end up watching the episodes in bits anyway. I was like,
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
Bro, it took me a whole day to watch a 20-minute anime. A whole day.
Stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
I'm still waiting for the 19th when the new Mortal Kombat 1 is released. Because once it's released, I know it's only a matter of time before someone cuts all the cutscenes together and I get that 23-hour long story that I'll watch for the rest of a month or so. But yeah, there you go. Cool.
Dope, man.
Well, this was a good one. This was a really good one. It was hot and
Yes.
for the live stream, forgive my microphone. I need to get a new microphone. But yeah, heavy hitters we represented, I think.
Come on.
And it wasn't diluted with the so-called best half of the furnace.
If he's still on.
Someone's still on. But yeah, no, thank you guys for rocking with us. We hope this was edifying for you too. And yeah, like hit us up. I think this is one of those ones where it's good to hear different perspectives. So definitely hit us up if you know. Hey, D-Man was here. David was here. Yo, shout out. I recognize his email because this is the email that he.
Yeah.
I said this is like his first email or something, so I
Come on.
recognize it. But shout out to David, shout out to Robert, for joining us, and yeah, please do holler if anything struck a chord with you, or if you have perspectives on this, you know, that identity or that sonship, stewardship dichotomy. I think is really useful. So yeah. Hope you've enjoyed it. Robert's not here to do the spiel, but yeah, if you know us, you know where to find us. So
YouTube seems to be the space right now, boy.
YouTube does seem to be the space, yeah. So yeah, have a good rest of the week, guys, and yeah, stay blessed. This is the Blacksmith Furnace, the better, fuller,
The heavy hitters.
4/5 of the furnace. Signing out.
Come on.
Peace.